can we do kind of an opposite order? Will this work for timing where mayors and representatives of Congress people start first? Will that work for Mayor Gomberg and Commissioner Olson? Representative Gomberg.
I've got about 15 minutes and then I need to run to another meeting, but
Then you'll go first.
You should go first, Brett.
Let me make this really simple. I have nothing new to report since Friday. Does anybody have any questions?
Yes, Shannon Buckmaster has one, and Mayor Wojtowski.
I think my questions actually can wait until we have the federal update, so there might be some overlap, but Representative Gomberg, I know you need to leave soon. Actually, yes, please excuse me, I'm going to wait and see if there.
All right, I'll pass that one to Stacy.
Mayor? Okay.
Sorry, unless there are any additional comments you would like to add about the governor's order to reopen Parks and Rec today. There was, in reading that, I did have concerns about hygiene. It sounds like there's going to be a shortage of restrooms. People are encouraged to bring their own toilet paper and pack it back out. And I'm just wondering about introducing transmission of different diseases or the quality of our public spaces in addition to the risk for crowding.
I understand your question. I don't have a lot of information on that. One thing you'll notice is that we are applying that on a regional basis, so much of my district will not be opening up, but the area where you live will.
That's a good question. Thank you, Shannon. I immediately, upon posting that on Facebook, had somebody ask me, does that mean the beaches are open? And I went to Oregon State Parks, and they said that they are closed. So,
well, technically our beaches are open, but the access points to get to them are closed.
Yeah. Mayor Wojtowski, your question?
Yeah, so, and I actually discussed this with Stacy this morning, and I've also talked to a couple other legislators today trying to kind of get a feel for this, but I'm interested in some more perspective or guidance. So the Portland Public Schools, as well as as of yesterday, Beaverton schools are deciding to do a weekly furlough for their teachers, cutting 1 day a week and reducing their salary, of course, on that. It's a 20% reduction. And they are doing that in order to qualify the teachers for the workshare program. And then also promising that, of course, the teachers, once they qualify for workshare, the unemployment insurance, they'll have that $600 bonus. So it's a reduction of teacher responsibility and work time. And it actually, by my rough math, ends up being maybe about a 12% increase in pay. And of course, I have a couple things with it. One is I understood executive order, I think it's 2008, which it was the school closure that says districts are expected to pay their teachers their regular salaries, which then I'm surprised that they would be allowed to do a furlough for the duration of the school year. Two, I'm really interested in understanding how public schools qualify for that workshare. To make sure that that's a realistic way to fund that. Of course, my fear is that districts will say, don't worry, teachers, you're actually going to get a little bit more money here. And then they're just actually shifting the onus of that onto teachers to apply for these programs. And we all know how quickly people are getting unemployment payments, and then teachers actually getting shorted. And then my remaining concern is that Portland and Beaverton have teams of HR folks who might file these claims on behalf of their teachers, and we will again, despite the fact that we already have like a 20% pay differential, that we will again see more ways that the urban schools have found ways to boost their teacher salaries while rural schools are kind of left behind. So I'm interested in if there's been much discussion that you're aware of regarding schools shifting to that furlough and hoping these other programs are going to boost teacher salaries.
Well, the short answer is no. I understand your concern completely. Have I heard a lot of conversation about this? No. I think that different jurisdictions are feeling their way around, trying to find opportunities and finding ways to reduce their costs in this uncertain time. That's my short answer. And no, I have not heard a lot about this. It's a relatively new development.
Okay. Thanks.
And maybe somebody who's more familiar with the WorkSource can chime in right now and explain how that would fit together. I was gesturing in Miss Stone's direction, but that's where she is on my screen.
And she had a question for you anyways.
Yeah, I certainly can't speak to answer Mayor Wojtowski's question, so I wish I could provide more support. I am not in the know either. I do have a question for you, Representative Lundberg. So I have been contacted by a few different business partners, and so one specific sector is the childcare sector, who received their guidelines now, I suppose, about a week and a half ago, the initial version. And since then, it sounds as though there's been a few iterations of that have been routing. I have only been sent the initial version. And so I'm curious, I'm certain that different iterations are coming about and being sent to folks in all of the business sectors. And for those that are feeling confused or curious about where they should be going to get the most updated guidelines, and how they should be identifying what is the most updated, how should we direct those folks?
Again, I haven't heard about these potential conflicts. Let me get back to you with an answer to that by noon tomorrow. Will that work?
Absolutely, thank you. And it's only this one sector that I have received that feedback on. So I would certainly appreciate that. Thank you.
Great. All right, I don't feel like I'm doing very good with questions tonight, but all right, I apologize for interrupting you, the reverse order that you wanted to go in. Before I run, there's one other thing I need to say, and I don't think we say it often enough, and that's that we need to really be very thankful for all the folks that are out on the front lines. The medical practitioners, the first responders, and the folks that are working our grocery stores, the people that are doing essential work. It's tough for them. We don't say thank you often enough. Stacy will confirm that this afternoon I was on the phone with Senator Merkley and raised a question about whether we have any information about the men and women that are serving overseas, particularly in the Oregon National Guard. We're not hearing anything about them, and it's hard for me to imagine how you maintain social distancing in a war zone. And also some questions about the family that they've left behind, who are having to deal with the challenges of COVID, as well as with the fact that that family members are away. So I know that Senator Merkley's office is going to be following up on that. I really appreciate that attention to a subject that we really haven't talked about at all. So Avishal, I will get you an answer by noon tomorrow.
Great.
And I'll see if I can find out a little bit more about teachers and worksource as well.
Thank you very much, Representative Gomberg.
Thanks, everybody.
Right. You know, it is National Nurses Week, I believe, this week. So it really is recognition to all the people who their job is to be out there all the time right now. So thanks to all of them. And thank you to you, Representative, for showing up here too. I appreciate it a lot. Okay, so if we can go, we could still work on in reverse order. I'd love to have Mayor Cape bring us up to speed and talk to the people of Amity as well.
Well, thank you. I joined a little bit late. I apologize. It took me, I left work a little bit later than I anticipated, but I'm happy to be here and able to share with Mayor Wojtowski another great beaver shirt. And since I won't be able to be here on Friday, so had to get that in. But we are plugging away. We are excited for a really big council meeting tomorrow. We got two big land use items on the agenda that we need to work through and get resolved. One is on Dollar General. So those that have been aware, you know, that's been kind of an ongoing issue for a couple of years now. So yet another proposal to come before the council, and hopefully we'll get some good resolution to that tomorrow. We are continuing with following along with all the draft guidelines that are coming out to try and prepare for, you know, that slowly reopening and what that's going to look like and what we're going to be able to do. And just continue to keep trying to find different ways to help our citizens. I continue to especially be concerned about, the once the restrictions are lifted, and we need to take a stronger look at our citizens that, have had to have those their water and wastewater accounts, we haven't suspended them or we haven't shut them off. So, but how do we get them back, get those citizens back, their accounts back into a positive position, and not a negative account balance? So I'm still hopeful that although I haven't heard anything from any of the reports from our congressional delegation about getting funding in there, I hope that maybe that will be a consideration at some level, or maybe even our state leaders can utilize some of the federal dollars for that. So that's still a big hope for me. So
yeah, Michael, Mayor Cape, I know that's something that our office is talking about, since you raised that, and whether we can try to get that into the fourth package or not. Something to help out with that financial side.
Thanks. We would really appreciate it, and I'm happy that it's at least being discussed. That's a good start. So
yeah, great. Thank you, Mayor Cape, and thank you for pushing that every week so that the congressional representatives here can hear that and take it back. Okay, great. Mayor Wojtowski, what would you like to tell people today?
Well, I'm looking at your little cues in the chat. I'll tell you, here's my update on the PPP. The loan application I submitted during the first round was approved. We got notified from the bank that we were in the first round of funding. We signed closing documents 3 weeks ago, and we are sitting here without any PPP money. So there's my update on that. And I don't know if I'm assuming it's actually a bank failure. I don't know if something's lost in that process, but they have their little tracker, and I've been sitting at stage 5 for 3 weeks. And my grandma keeps asking, oh, so did we not get that now? Or is that not coming? And I keep telling her, I still think it is. I don't know what the deal is. And of course, there's not really anybody that I can ask except a local teller at a McMinnville branch who has no idea why that loan is not funded. So that's frustrating. Some additional frustrations that I kind of want to voice at this point, and I know I've tried really hard to make sure that my narrative on here has been relatively positive, so you'll have to forgive me. It's not going to be as positive today. I know Casey, you reshared, Commissioner, you reshared a Facebook status that I put up the other day. It ended up being
amazing.
Thank you. It ended up being viewed thousands of times and shared like something like 140 times or something, which was great. It also resulted in lots and lots and lots of people seeing that information and then contacting me personally to ask questions and share stories. And I will tell you, I was overwhelmed with the stories of people who are self-employed and have still not received anything, who've not received PPP, who are not receiving unemployment, who cannot find their way through the system. And I know today I read about a Salem salon operator who is opening in violation of the order, being threatened with fines, but she's at a point where she said, I can't feed my family. And if the unemployment was coming, if these promised reliefs were being actually received, it would probably feel really different. But I think we're really approaching a tipping point. I wish the state legislators were still on this call too, but I feel like we're just at this tipping point where even people who really want to respect the stay home to stay safe orders, even people who really want to respect social distancing and, and believe, the CDC and the OHA and all the public health recommendations, they're at a point where they're having to choose between a health risk and literally not being able to feed their families, not being able to provide medicine to their families. And these are not reasonable choices. That is not a reasonable choice. And so, of course, there are some unreasonable decisions then being made, like operating known to be in violation of a gubernatorial order. And that's hard. So I do want to express that. I've been contacted by tattoo artists, salon owners, secondhand store owners, other retailers, farm operators, lots of businesses. And they're saying, hey, I saw your post. I understand that there's a little bit of movement on reopening. here I am, I've been closed for 6 weeks and I still have not received an unemployment check. I still can't get a phone call, and they're getting nothing. So many people have got nothing. And of course, I'm telling them, you know, I'm not going to encourage you to open in violation of a governor's order. You're not going to get that encouragement from me. But I will tell you, I'm sure empathetic to the situation. And I really feel like there are folks, lots of folks, unfortunately, who are being forced to make a choice that is not reasonable. And it's a big failure. I'm really frustrated with that. As far as those reopening plans, I mean, I think, you know, like Commissioner Kula, I'm getting lots of communication from the governor's office on those various sector plans and being allowed to provide some feedback. And I really appreciate the opportunity to comment on those plans. But again, I feel like we're getting to this like, oh, and what are we going to do for the next step? And there are folks stuck 3 steps behind because they're still waiting for their unemployment to kick in, which again, you know, the question I asked about the schools, when I was told, hey, schools are going to this, but it's fine because the teachers are going to get the unemployment, I'm like, nobody's getting unemployment. I don't want to agree to furloughs that are going to, you know, immediately reduce my salary when I have no idea if anything else is actually going to close that gap. So, you know, I'm a little bit frustrated today. I've had a lot of conversations the last few days. And there have been other things, you know, facilities, I think, kind of misunderstanding some of the orders. I was contacted by somebody who had been allowed to visit her husband, who's under hospice care, end of life care, and was told Friday, oh, the governor's orders tightened visitor restrictions, and now you can't see your husband unless death is imminent. And she's asking for help, and I have no help that I can offer her. And that's heartbreaking. So, you know, I think we can, some of us can play one role. One is, you know, we can increase communication. I think how quickly that post spread is evidence that people are really hungry for information. And so even if it's really specific, even if it's, you know, Shannon and Joy are getting economic information and can share that, that's great. If we're getting legislative information of what's, you know, going, I mean, I think we need to be communicating with people, because some of the communications out there are not accurate. They're biased or made up or whatever. And those communications are really kind of penetrating into homes and getting into people's minds. And it's making people feel really justified in defying orders. Anyway, that was super, super long. And I'm sorry, it's a little bit of a rant. I really have tried to keep a pretty positive presence. But the last few days have been a little bit of a challenge for me, because I am a problem solver and I am a people helper. And I can't do those things in this situation, and it hurts my heart.
Yeah. Mayor Witowski, thank you. I would like to acknowledge, though, that you wrote your post in a way that was understandable to basically anybody who can read. And I also think that that's really, really, really important, because a lot of the things that are out there that are accurate information, or that are timely updates from the state or from the federal government, aren't things that most people are going to like fully comprehend. And you wrote it as though you were talking to people in that moment. So I just want to acknowledge that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That's what a decade in education looks like, because I teach economics. And you got to figure out how to put these big complex things into something that's going to make sense to a 17-year-old. So, you know, maybe we should have teachers leading all of the government communications and everybody would get it.
Right. And Joya made a comment that one of her friends, a daughter, finally after 6 weeks, heard back from unemployment and is receiving it. And I have heard that too, actually, from around the country, family and friends, that they're finally getting it. But for the person who hasn't got it yet, that they don't know how long that wait is going to be. And it's heartbreaking to me. So.
And one more follow-up on the unemployment thing. You know, another complication of that, though, is that when people have had their applications rejected because they were self-employed and they applied before that was adjusted, those people are discouraged. And lots of people, lots of everyday folks are very unaccustomed to navigating through government policy and government forms and applications and may not have the resilience to fill those out again and again, and instead will just go without. So again, I think that comes down to communication. I know that, you know, we heard from legislators, hey, they've updated the forms, they've hired new people, they're getting trained, but I literally only heard that in direct conversations I had. I haven't seen that. I haven't seen it in media. I haven't seen it, you know, really going, you know, circulating on social media or in other forums. And so I think a lot of those people just went, well, I got denied and I'm not going to get it now, which is part of why I think they're being pushed to act in violation of these orders. Is it's out of desperation and kind of feeling disenfranchised by their first attempts to get that help.
Yeah, thank you very much. I know that Shannon Buckmaster has one thing to add regarding the PPP, but I wonder if Al and Stacy want to add anything as well. And I will hear you, and I'm going to do my part to communicate the unemployment part.
Mayor Wojtowski, thank you so much for sharing. Actually, I'm proud of your frustration because it shows your compassion and your empathy and your commitment to community. So thank you. It's nice. I did hear from a local national banking executive just this evening that they're still overwhelmed with the queue of applications for the PPP process, but he did get a memo this afternoon saying that they thought there was about $50 billion left in that fund. So it's still being dispersed. I mean, $50 billion, it's not going to go forever, but there's still hope.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Stacy or Al, do you want to add anything? Abhisha also has a comment.
Go ahead, Abhisha.
Yeah, I just wanted to jump in on the PPP conversation. I recently spoke to, and you know, none of us have all the answers, and that's the unfortunate thing is, I wish that there were more very clear answers that we could share with folks, but I did hear from 2 businesses recently that they just got their funding for their PPP after having received approval 3 to 4 weeks ago. So we're seeing it slowly roll through, and I think that that's why these systems stopped taking applications, so that they could work through the backlog. But folks that had received approval are now starting to see the funds come through at a local level. So 2 examples of that just this within the last week. Yeah.
Great. And Stacy or Al, did you want to add anything?
Stacey, you're on mute, but I will go while you're unmuting. I don't have anything specific to say, Mayor Wojtowski, other than the Congresswoman has heard these same heartbreaking stories all across Northwest Oregon and is just as frustrated and upset about the rollout of these programs. We are hearing that if you have the number that I think Abhisha was mentioning, if you did get a number from SBA, you should be getting your funds. I don't think that they're coming out as smoothly as possible, but if you have that number, you shouldn't have to reapply. I don't know, Stacey, if you have anything more specific to add on that.
I don't. No, I think you covered it. I know that I mean, this is not a great way to have a learning experience. But I think every level of government is going through that and seeing that, you know, standing up a multi-billion-dollar program in the middle of a pandemic is hard, and it did not happen perfectly, and it's still kind of a mess. And I think that, you know, God forbid this happen again, we'll have a program in place to get money out to folks, but I think we can continue to tweak it and try to make it better and make sure that money gets to people. You know, the congressional intent was to move quickly and get money to folks and be there, and it's just, you know, it didn't happen that way. And I think that we'll have to take this and learn and try to do better with the next rollout. So I just appreciate everyone's patience, and I know this is, I can't, yeah, you know, I'm lucky. I have a job. I can work here and talk to you all, and I know not everyone is that fortunate. So
yeah, and
you feel it.
I think that Mayor Wojtowski is just like hit it right on the head, in that if you're offered something, you're promised something, and then you either get nothing, you have silence, or you get, you know, through unemployment, they're like, oh, you're denied for some unknown reason. It feels like there's no other choice but to, you know, resist the whole thing, the whole proposal, right? That we are sheltering for a reason.
And it's at every level, right? You know, we have businesses who can't get their funding. We have unemployed people who can't get their money, and that,
yeah,
put people in a corner, and it's
Right. And so while we were talking, I also looked up just as a reminder. So if you go to the, for people who are watching or will watch later, if you go to the State Employment Department, there'll be a little bar that says PUA. For PUA assistance, click CARES Act button, which isn't exactly the most clear because you have to know what PUA and CARES Act mean. But for those who are watching or listening, you click on that and there's an application for the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance. And that's for folks who are sole props, independent contractors, filers of 1099s. So for those out there, and I'll make sure to post that when we're done here too. Are there other thoughts and comments for Mayor Wojtowski? Oh, Shannon Buckmaster did have one comment she put in the chat. Okay, never mind.
I mean, it's in the chat, and I am hearing that these funds are almost being ghosted into bank accounts, that people are surprised when they check their balance and they see the PPP funds have been deposited, which is not typically what we expect from federal bureaucracy, right? We expect to have confirmation, but just to support the process that Stacy and Al are speaking to, we've never done this before, and we're trying to have an immediate response. So without being unsafe or cutting corners, we're streamlining the process. They are streamlining the process as quickly as possible. So I am hearing that the funding is coming in, and it's like, surprise, here's money.
Great, thank you very much. Well, we're looking for, Stacy, do you want to do the frustrating version of the federal update?
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no, but I will.
Gets to do the fun one.
Okay. My neighbor is mowing their lawn, it sounds like, so sorry. But one thing I do want to update before I get to the bummer part is that the EIDL program is open right now for agricultural producers, which is pretty cool. So I'm not sure if it'll be open again for regular businesses, but right now they're open, they're live for ag operators. And then last week I was thinking that I was going to come in with an update today on negotiations on COVID-4, but it sounds like that's going to be a few weeks out. Senator McConnell brought the Senate back to session, but he sets the calendar, and what's on the calendar is judicial nominations. So that's where we are right now. And we have a sense, conversations are continuing, and we're still writing letters to leadership, trying to make sure that our priorities are in this bill, but it's looking like it's a few weeks out versus imminent. And I'll let Al speak to the House side of that.
Great, thank you, Stacy.
Yeah, the information is changing pretty rapidly. As it stands right now, we are hearing that the House is going to be in session next week. It could be as early as late this week. I think May 11th. I know May 11th has been floating around. I'm a little bit hesitant to say that because it could very possibly change. I do want to say, sorry, the sun is setting as I'm sitting here, and I'm just like inching higher and higher, and it's driving me crazy.
So beautiful.
Stop looking at my own face and look at everybody else's face. I do want to say that, as Stacy said, we are also sending out letters to leadership and trying to put our priorities forward. And I'm going to send out an official email to my chamber and association leaders soon. But the Congresswoman did sign on in support of a letter to include 501c6s and associations in the next bill. So I know that's something we've been hearing a lot of, and that is a priority for her moving forward. And I wanted to say, Mayor Wojtowski and Mayor Cape, I appreciate hearing your feedback and frustrations. And Mayor Cape, you said you've been talking about, your priority every week, and you're going to continue to say that. And I really recommend that everybody does that at the end of every week. I send a full report to the boss about what I've been hearing, who I've been having conversations with, and what their priorities are. And I know Stacy does the same. And then, she looks over everything and then she brings those up. So the more you share, the more you repeat, the more I can continue to share the same things. I mean, if you tell me 5 times about something that's a priority, I tell the boss 5 times. So every time you echo it, it gets louder and louder and louder. So please just continue to share that. And it looks like I have no mouth, so that's going to be my cue to stop talking. But I'll take questions if anyone has questions.
Yes, it looks like Mayor Cape.
Yeah, my work is gonna keep me from participating on Friday, so I'll just say now, I will repeat that message on Friday, even though I won't be there. So
Great.
There you go. Thank you.
I'll write it down, Mayor Cape.
Beautiful. Other comments or questions or things you want to push for Al?
I have several questions for both Al and Stacy. I can either list them and we can go through them as you maybe can overlap. I'd like more clarification on the EIDL applications. We heard that the SBA is no longer accepting EIDL applications except for agricultural business. And I'm really, really glad that we made progress on ag businesses having access to these funds. However, there's another group of people now that we were told that it was reinvested in and they can't access the money either. So what I've heard is that either the funding is gone. I've also heard that they're putting a pause on new ag applications that are not ag-based because they're overwhelmed and they don't want to crash the system again. So what is the truth on the EIDL funding available? Why can we not have non-ag businesses submitting applications right now? Let's clear up some of these myths that Mayor Wojtowski was referring to.
Yeah, I don't have the answer on that, honestly. We can look into it, but I don't have a good answer except for that, you know, they reopened EIDL and we said, you know, you're supposed to open this up to ag producers. And so they opened it up for only ag producers. And I think that's because they're still working through a backlog of not ag producers. I can't see I would have anticipated that they would have opened it up for everybody, including ag producers. So I'm not quite sure why SBA went that direction. I'm happy to try to find that answer, but I don't have it. I don't know if Al has any other information, but I don't know why they went that direction.
Yeah, I don't, Shannon, but I will repeat your question and concern in to the ledge side of things. They might have more information, and I'll circle back and either say still don't know, but thank you for that comment, and we will continue to dig into it, or maybe there will be some clarity.
Thank you. That does at least clarify that the EIDL applications are not open for most people right now, which was a point of confusion. Everybody
right. Just
they are not getting the website wrong. Did you have more comments, or should I go on to the next question?
Next.
All right. So federal stimulus payments, we saw a change in that now you are not going to be receiving your federal stimulus check if you have not filed for this year, or you owe taxes if you have filed for this year or still owe for last year. Originally, that we were told that the stimulus payments, and this is per household, right, part of the CARES Act, would be paid out even if you hadn't yet filed 2019 income taxes, or if you owed a balance. So what was the change behind that, or can we clear up some of that language? People are still waiting for their stimulus checks, and the IRS tracker online is not reliable.
So I feel Representative Gomberg right now, because man, I don't know. I had not heard that people. My understanding was that no one was going to be having their check garnished. So I had not heard that before.
So to clarify, Shannon, are you saying that you're hearing that folks who did not file 2019 taxes are not getting the stimulus checks?
Correct. That's what I'm hearing. Or if they owe federal taxes or owed last year. And it's helpful that there was a stimulus tracker website that was released. It's something like track my payment at irs.gov. Mm-hmm. But either the accounts are not synced, or sometimes people are not able to update with information if they need to put in a routing number for direct deposit based on what their tax filing status was. And originally, it was my understanding, and I think other people were kind of nodding as I said this, that the stimulus check would be paid to all eligible citizens.
Yeah, that was my understanding as well. And I think you're winning at Stump the Staffers today. But I'll look into that and see. Stacey, you haven't heard that either?
No, I hadn't heard that. And so I know that there are issues with the IRS tracker, and it doesn't work in certain circumstances. So there's like a whole list of situations where the IRS tracker won't work and where people can't give their bank information. And then we're hearing that it's possible that for some of the issues, it won't be able to be fixed until 2020, like tax return. So
Yeah.
I need to look at the owed taxes. Okay, so people who didn't file 2019 but did file 2018
Correct.
aren't
But if
getting
they,
it.
and specifically, if they owed in 2018 and but they filed, they're not able to use the tracker and they have not received their stimulus check.
Okay.
If anything, we may actually need to get more accurate information out to our financial services professionals, like accountants, people who are giving advice as well. So if we can get a clear answer on what it is and then distribute that information, of course, Joya and I on behalf of the chambers are more than happy to do that. But we just need clarification because this is another level of confusion, but also frustration.
So I do wonder that if they owed in 2018, but they filed, if they are going to, they weren't able to give their bank information. If these are people who are getting paper checks, that's a possibility, but it's also impossible to get through the IRS to check to find out if that's the case. Okay.
So I just have a, kind of an anecdotal, obviously, comment to that, but like neither my mother nor my grandmother have received their checks. And both of them did pay in 18. My mom did file, like they both filed in 19, but my mom didn't make her payment yet because there was an extension and she had a roof emergency. And it's the same thing. And when I try to go to the where's my refund for both of their information, it acts there's no record. And then I look through the list of situations and for those two, and I realize it's two people and it's just anecdotal, but none of those situations apply. And yet there it is. So there's other issues I think with the tracker and yeah.
Yeah, one of the things I'm almost embarrassed to say about the tracker, and this is just one of those like little tech things that I've heard that who knows if it works, but some people have said that if you put your address in all caps, that is working for certain things. I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying if the tracker doesn't work for them case-wise, but some people who it does work for, but they're getting like an error message. Some folks are putting it in all caps and that is working. I don't have even one anecdotal example of that, but that's a rumor that at least can't hurt to try.
And Mayor, along those lines, as another farmer, we would not have gotten anything if we hadn't gone in and put in our information and put in our bank account and routing information. And we didn't know that. We just wondered why nothing was showing up for us as well. And it's because we always have to pay, rather we never get a refund. And so that's just part of it for us. But I think Joya had a comment.
I had the same issue. My husband and I filed jointly, and his name is first. And so I went in to see if I was going to get mine. And because we filed jointly, I had to go and do his first. And then I put in our bank information, and then I put mine in, and it said, oh, you're going to get notified. You qualify. Great. I don't know when it's coming, but I qualify. So I think there's probably for every person, there's a story out there. Right.
And Abishai, did you have a question? Oh, yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Abishai. I have a question, but I'll come.
No, I just had a comment as we were talking about this issue with confusion on the stimulus checks or the rebate checks, is that there was some language that came out of the governor's office. We get routed a lot of kind of weekly updates, and it spoke to this, and it kind of read that though some people don't have to do anything, many people do. And it talked about having to file 2018, 2019 taxes. And unfortunately, like a lot of what we're talking about right now, it's just not extremely clear. And so I appreciate Shannon's question, because it again speaks to exactly what Mayor Wojtowski was saying, is that, everybody has a marketing issue in the world at all times. And this is what we're seeing here, is just, we need really clear communication, because there are too many scenarios that any of these folks could be playing through. And at least to be able to say, go here to get the accurate information is extremely valuable. So I appreciate the position Stacy and Al are both in, trying to answer these difficult questions with multiple scenarios, but Shannon brings up a really great point, and even the resource of information that we have, so our reference point is not very clear, and so
yeah, and our reference point is the IRS, and that's
right.
not clear, and that's
Right.
not great.
Right. Shannon wanted to follow up. We were at question 2, and I believe she wants to go with question 3 for the federal delegation representative.
I have one more planned question. I may have other questions, but by the way, Stacey, we really do appreciate you participating in these calls on a regular basis. We believe that you have good intentions and that you're giving us your best professional performance. So I do want to affirm you, and sometimes we just don't know what we don't know. So next question, though, it's actually a combination of federal working together with state. So what I'm hearing from a lot of our businesses as they're reviewing the plans to reopen Oregon is that it's not financially sustainable for them to open under these guidelines. So there will be restaurants, childcare providers, bars, personal care services, all sorts of businesses that have permission to reopen under these conditions but can't afford to reopen. Now, when we combine that with the condition for the PPP funds that you have to restore your workforce, are we having any conversations at the federal level? Because I'm suspecting that the economic impact from coronavirus is gone on longer than what was envisioned with the PPP fund creation, right? So we expected to have the ability to restore our workforce, and we're starting to get to that really delicate point that the first people who received first PPP funding, they held that loan for 10 days to give themselves as much time as possible. And then they had the 2-week wait. And now they're starting to get the pressure, especially if they have the ability to reopen, to bring back workforce. And with companies who haven't even received their PPP funding yet, we're still going to go right up to that June 30th restoration deadline. So how is the federal conversation progressing to extend that deadline for restoring workforce, or even a conditional clause, so that if it's not financially sustainable to bring back their workforce, that they wouldn't either have to convert those PPP from forgivable funds to a forgivable grant to a loan, which is what it's designed for, or, I mean, I think I've communicated the struggle here. So, and part of that is because of the state situation of how we're reopening, but it's still the federal funding process.
So I can actually answer this one. Thank you. I was on a call with the senator earlier. He was on the North Coast Regional Solutions call, and I believe it was the Tillamook Chamber asked him that same question, and he's going to be trying to get something in place before the end of May, or hopefully in the next coronavirus package, to extend that and consider that this has gone longer than 8 weeks, and the people who started at the beginning are going to be running up against that date. So this is a conversation that we're having and wanting to make sure that they're protected.
Yeah, and Shannon, we're having those same conversations in our office as well. The Congresswoman has heard that in a few different places, and that is something that she's bringing in on the House side.
Thank you. Now we get to end on a positive note of good information.
Thank you. And I'm closed for questions.
Wait a minute,
Right,
I have
you.
a question. Oh, sorry.
Open back up.
May I? Okay, thank you. So I don't know if you've heard this for this American Safe Small Business Coalition. Stacey or Al, have you heard about this?
Oh.
What they're trying to do is there's a whole bunch of chambers that have signed on to it. Basically, they're trying to get the federal government to create a fund somewhat similar to the 9/11 fund that they created for first responders. And they've got several things that they're asking, and I just wondered if you'd heard about it. I'm going to forward it to you. You actually have to join the coalition to read the white paper, which I don't quite understand why you can't share the white paper, but for whatever reason, I'll forward it over to you. Maybe you could let me know if you've heard anything about it, and I appreciate that. That's all I have to ask. Thank you.
Thank you. I haven't seen it, but I would be surprised if our ledge staff back in DC haven't had this forwarded to them, but I will check it out and make sure that they see it too.
I'll send it to you. Thank you. I'll send it to both of you. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Treya.
Great, and I just realized for the record, I missed Shannon Buckmaster's Chehalem Valley Chamber meeting, and I also missed our MV-ERT meeting, which I think that at least Avisha and Al are on, and Stacy. So today, those damn budget meetings. Anyway, okay, that's enough of. Do we have more questions for the congressional delegations representatives here? All right. Abisha, can you wait until I ask Commissioner Olson what he would like to tell people? Okay, great. Commissioner Olson, I'd love to have you speak to the county population and the people here. But also, what things would you like to talk about as far as the county's own baby steps towards reopening plans?
Thanks, Casey. I think the couple things that I want to talk about first is highlight is the no eviction order that was put in place. My wife manages a well, we do, but my wife basically manages a largest manufactured home community in McMinnville. We have 228 homes. It's where you own the home as real property, but you lease the property. Well, we're having people come to us and say, you know, this doesn't do any good because I may not have to pay rent now, but since it's non-forgivable 3-4 months from now, not only do I have to pay the same rent, I have to make up that rent. And if they can hardly pay their own rent on their space now, they're going to end up being in the same situation in September, October, because they can't make they cannot make the payments for the back rent. And that's really heartening. So you own your own home and you have a lifetime lease on a piece of property. But because you have your own home, and manufactured homes are affordable homes, because you have your own home, but you lease the property, you will probably end up losing your home anyway if you can't bring enough.
I think we lost you there at the end. Maybe not. Okay. Thank you very much, Commissioner Olson, for that. Whoa, and Abisha, Al is taking us on a tour of her son. Abisha, what would you like to tell people both in the county and here on the call today?
Thank you, Commissioner. I appreciate that the team has covered a lot of the topics of conversation I was hoping to delve into. The EIDL program being made available to agricultural producers is wonderful. At the same time, we're hearing a lot of folks say that they've applied and they've received confirmation and have not yet received funds. We're hoping that that's a backlog of documentation, and those who have received confirmation of approval will eventually be funded, just like the PPP program. So we're eagerly waiting to hear back from those folks. So I guess the only other new information I have to share is that I have been sharing on these meetings with many of you over time that SEDCOR is working on an exchange, or, you know, the Craigslist, if you will, connecting PPE manufacturers and suppliers to those in need. We are hearing a lot more from all of our business partners throughout each business sector and industry partners asking for making the opportunity to make these connections. So we've been contacted directly by dental offices asking for, you know, who makes medical gowns. We actually have a business in our region who's making medical gowns. And one of the struggles that they have is now all of these one-off purchases for these new vendors require full vendor setup, contract signing. It takes a lot of work and a lot of time for businesses that essentially act as contract manufacturers. This is not the way that they generally do business, and it's very difficult for them to manage. So our next point of business is to work directly with distributors for all of these business sectors. So kind of working with those who distribute PPE equipment for dental offices and clinics and you know, kind of our grocery store partners and our restaurant partners. So trying to make those connections. We have a draft version of this exchange that's been routed through the SEDCOR team, and the interface looks very user-friendly, and I'm really excited about it. We've contracted somebody to write code to put this program together. We are doing this independently. We have kind of the emotional and verbal support of the state and other partners, and had no intention of duplicating efforts. So we were really trying to look around to see if others were doing this first to make sure that we were supporting those those intentions and trying to make sure that, again, we're not wasting any time or money or effort. I have a lot of respect and appreciation to offer to our chamber partners who have been actively doing this same work and have shown a lot of support to SEDCOR for us trying to put together this program. So we have a few businesses that we're building into our test model, and we're hoping to have a fully functioning model that we can share out with everyone very early next week. So by the end of this week, we hope to have something we can play around with and make sure that it's functioning properly and built in correctly. And then something hopefully we can share out next week. We don't have any intention in any way of charging for the use of this system. We're also not trying to necessarily manage confirming, whether people have certifications that they're claiming to have. So there's going to be one level of removal of that, but at least to create a platform. And then whatever that becomes later, it becomes later. But we want to launch a platform where these suppliers can build in and folks that are looking for these materials can access.
I'm back, Casey. I'm
welcome,
back.
Welcome back. Commissioner Olson, can you wait a moment so we finish Abishai's update?
If she's still giving her update, I'll wait on Abishai anytime.
Okay, that sounds good.
What would you like me to bring you, Abishai, since I'm waiting on you?
I would like some of that Pez I see back there in your background. That looks pretty good, and I haven't been to the store in a while.
Bring over a 40-foot tractor trailer and we'll load them up.
All right. Other questions or thoughts for Abishai? Okay, well, I'm really excited about it. Oh, Joya had a little. We also need to get to Joya's question about USDA. So.
Sorry. Do we have a launch date for that, Abishai?
So right now we're tentatively saying by Tuesday. So if any of you have business partners that you're aware of who are actively making PPE and you would like to make sure that they get listed on the exchange, please feel free to start sending those my way. We're happy to get them built in and just get them started so that as soon as we hit go, we have some of those already in there.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
All righty.
All right. Commissioner Olson, you were saying something.
Yeah, well, I was talking about the rent assistance, but we're running short on time. So I'll talk a little bit about the county and what's going on in my feeling in the county. I've been in budgeting either from a appointed or elected position for over 40 years now with the City of McMinnville as a budget committee, City of McMinnville as a chairperson, City of McMinnville as the city councilor, and then as the mayor, and now with the county. I can honestly say over these 40 years, this is the toughest budget that I've ever seen from a governmental agency that we've ever had to do. We're basically dealing with the same things that private corporations are. The governor's projection, we won't know until May 20th when she does her anticipated budget, but a revenue forecast that right now she's called for the state agencies to do an 8.5% per year cut. Well, that basically means we're in the first year of a two-year biennium. So that really means 17% over the 2 years. What is very unclear is, does that mean that counties and other jurisdictions have to make that 17% cut all in the second year of the biennium, or do we have to pay back money from the first year of the biennium? So how we're going to get funded, a lot of those programs, most of the county is actually funded on from the state and federal government. Very little of our, I think it's 14% of our budget actually is general funds dollars. So that's all we have to play with. So if the state does not provide money due to, I think it was Senate Bill 1145, and according to in 2018, the state had a cost of services done, and it showed that the state was definitely underfunding most of the programs that the county was running. So they were going to upgrade that to get into the next cost of service, which hadn't been done until 2010. Well, the legislature never passed that. So we're taking a loss anyway. Well, one of the things about it is that we have the option, counties on certain programs have the option of opting out of, there's several criminal community justice programs that are funded by the state. So many of our HHS programs are funded by the state that we could drop out of or opt out of those programs and have the state take them over again, because it would be a massive, that 8.5%, even in the next biennium, would be a massive cut to our budget. So either we give some programs back, we lay off staff. We do have some reserves that'll get us through, but I don't think they'll get us through. So this is for the budget committee, and we do our deliberations tomorrow. Our budget committee, we're facing probably the toughest budget I've ever seen. I thought 2008 was bad when we had the building slump and everything. But this year, I think you're going to see a change in a lot of what the county provides, how they provide it, because the county is just not going to be able to provide those services. So I guess like we're in the same situation as a lot of private enterprises. What the state decides to do affects our budget substantially. So that's all I have, Casey.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Olson. Joya and Shannon, you have asked lots of questions, but can I put you on the spot? What would you like to say, especially to businesses in the community, that you haven't said yet?
Oh, I think that the hardest thing is, I mean, we're doing this together, right? If I could just say anything, it's to attempt to be encouraging. This is frustrating. This is challenging. We're learning all the time, and what we think we know is shifting on a regular basis. And so I know I speak on behalf of anybody who's on these calls and so many other conversations happening around the state that we all have the best of intentions, and we're working to the best of our professional ability because we passionately care about the success of our communities. And it's not just from a capitalist perspective of, saving some odd concept called the economy. It's because we understand that families and livelihoods and homes and quality of life are affected on a daily basis because of the frustrations and challenges that we're doing that. So especially the longer we get into the impacts of this, the more aware we are that this is a new normal, it's a different culture, and it really requires tremendous community cooperation. So if anything, I would just say, don't give up, share your frustrations with kindness if you can, and if not, we're gonna love you and forgive you, just get it out. And thank you for allowing us to be your public servants through what is just a devastating and tremendously challenging time for most of us.
I would say the same thing. We care about our businesses, and we care about the employees that work for our businesses, because everybody, you're all part of our community. And if there's something we can do to help, whether you are a community member or a business, it doesn't matter. The chamber is here for everybody, and we want to support, our community, and that's what we're here for. So we're here. Call us, and don't give up, because we are in this together.
Great, thank you very much, Joya. I realized I never, back to things that aren't beautiful words, I never got your follow-up question about the USDA and ag loans to the federal delegation here. So Al and Stacy, Joya has a question for you, which is, doesn't the USDA have programs for loans to farmers that would be the equivalent of the PPP, or sorry, the EIDL?
I was gonna say, yeah. That are the equivalent of EIDL. I don't think that are the equivalent of EIDL, but I'm not an expert in ag. But I think the idea was, we had heard from a lot of farmers that they were in dire need for this funding right away, like a lot of the other small businesses were, and that they needed access to it. And I don't know all the behind the scenes things, but it was a big priority for the senator to make sure that this got opened up for them.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Are there any last thoughts? Mayor Kate.
Yeah, just real quick, you had asked about an update on schools, and I usually try and let Beth take the lead on that. But a little bit of news from Salem Kaiser today. We are looking at possibly having some of our summer school programs going on. So that is a positive move, I think, in the right direction. It's certainly not going to be all of our normal summer school programs, but certainly at least a few select ones. So I really like that idea. Primarily like our kindergarten type programs, getting the kindergartners to learn, kind of what is school and, what's a teacher and, a principal and all that kind of good stuff. What's the cafeteria and where is it? Getting those kindergartners ready to go to school. So I'm excited to hear that we're moving forward with trying to see if we can make that happen. The kind of bad news or concerning news, I guess, is, as I was really interested in the draft guidelines for the transit industry. I work with school buses, so very closely related to transit. It's not exactly the same, but much like was kind of mentioned earlier, those draft guidelines would make it, I think, impossible for school buses to transport kids to school. And for Salem Kaiser, we look at anywhere from about 12 to 15, 17,000 students a day riding school buses to get them to school. And so those draft guidelines would make that nearly impossible for us if we were to follow those transit guidelines. And school, like I said, school bus is a little bit different, but so things to ponder as we move forward and trying to, as Mayor Wojtowski said, trying to get some information out there. So that's the report I got for schools.
Great, thank you very much, Mayor. And I actually have an update, which is that Thursday we'll be talking the health region of Marion, Polk, Yamhill counties. Lynn and Benton, I believe, are the health region. We'll be talking with the governor, going over the draft framework for reopening on a county by county or regional basis. And as part of that, we have to look at how is our county meeting those guidelines or those milestones. And I'm happy to report that we are well on our way to meeting the county specific. But since we are part of a region, there are guidelines that are specific to the region and the health region as well, and the state and actually the feds in each of those geographic considerations. And I think Mayor Wojtowski looked at a lot of them, but we are, the information from our county is that we are well on the way to meeting them, which is very exciting, because it means that we could, it's the guidance to reopening safely with a focus on public health. But I also wanted to reiterate, kind of following up on Mayor Wojtowski's comments, is that I just want to put this out there that your federal, so the people in Yamhill County, is that your federal and your state and your county leaders promised you that we'd have unemployment benefits for you and that we'd have money to keep your businesses afloat. And we have full promises as well. So that's a really important thing here, is that we still need to fulfill our end of the bargain in order to be here and to hold tight until it's safe to reopen. So thank you all. Any last comments before we sign off? All right, everybody here is working for you all the time, so we're all in this together, and thank you very much. And I'll see you on Friday.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you, everybody.